Hi, I'm Simon Hartley.
And I'm Helen Martin.
Welcome back to Pep Talks. We're absolutely delighted to welcome back Dominic Colenso. I was reflecting on a conversation I had with some business leaders earlier in the week. We were talking about how people remember relatively little of what you say, but they really do remember how you make them feel. And it took me back to that session that you and I delivered, the world-class sales session that we delivered in November. And one of the things that really hit me is the importance of getting the emotional bit of communication right. I mean, it's massively important, isn't it?
It's huge, yeah, absolutely. And I think it kind of tends to be the kind of missing part of the equation, if you like. So many businesses right now are going through a kind of digital transformation, a kind of forced digital transformation in that sense. We're scrabbling around to try and make everything work online, whether that's meetings, whether that's process, sales, and all of that sort of thing. And it can be really easy to forget that actually there's a human element there. And if we're not engaging on that human level, if we're not thinking about how we make people feel, then we fail to move them. We fail to take them on that journey with us.
Yeah, it would be really easy for it all to become logistical and transactional, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And forget the emotional dimension here.
Yeah, absolutely. And
communications. I know, Dominic, the last time you were on, we talked about the video communications, and I think everybody, as the weeks have gone on, people want to know more, like when, and really they want to know when's it all going to return to normal. And I think we have to prepare to be wrong about whatever message we give, because we honestly don't know. But I think one of the things you mentioned was keeping that energy high, and actually just keep telling your people, I read somewhere today, that you believe in them, you believe in their ability, and and kind of giving out positive reinforcement, even when you can't say, honestly, I don't know what the future is. So how do you deliver that, like, with high energy when it's kind of not a positive message?
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? It's about holding space for people when there's uncertainty. People look for leadership, and leadership in these moments doesn't have to be kind of striving towards a goal and galvanizing people around an objective. Leadership can actually be quite still. And can be, inviting a conversation and holding uncertainty for the members of your team, just to be a pair of ears to listen, and to reassure people that you are giving them all the information that you do have to hand. So I think that kind of suspicion starts to kick in when people worry that the boss knows more than they do, there's something sinister going on in the background. So the more kind of honest you can be, and the more honest you can be about your own emotion, I think from a leadership and management perspective, having lots of conversations with coaching clients around the fact that if you narrate your own emotional journey, if you say to your team, I found this week quite tough. I'm a little bit exhausted from all the Zoom calls that we've been on, or from just having to juggle being a parent and trying to get some homeschooling in and keeping the business moving forward. If you can talk from that human place, then it allows you to connect, and it's incredibly reassuring for your audience.
I remember one of the things that you shared with us through the masterclass was that, as an actor, of course, one of your jobs is to appreciate what the audience is feeling and take them on an emotional journey. So how do people, when they communicate, business leaders, salespeople, whoever, actually understand that emotional journey and start to deliberately take people on the kind of emotional journey that they want to?
Yeah. So the way I get people to think about it is 3 steps. So know, feel, do. And when you initially start thinking about content, you tend to kind of gather your ideas. You gather those key bullet points, the key messages that you want to get across. And quite often then you go away and you create the slide deck that supports that, and you go kind of job done. In reality, you need to take it to the next level and start to think about, what do I want to make people feel? And there's a technique that's from the world of acting called emotional intention, and that's all about deciding exactly what that journey is going to be. So thinking, okay, with this piece of content, what am I trying to do? Am I trying to challenge my audience? Am I trying to excite my audience? Am I trying to reassure my audience? When it's really interesting, when you hold that emotional intention in your head, and really focus on that emotional intention, it literally changes the way the words come out of your mouth, but also which words come out of your mouth. Because if you're trying to reassure someone, you're going to choose very different language than if you are trying to excite them or if you're trying to challenge them. So it's a really good way of thinking about that kind of narrative arc, if you like, if we're going into kind of storytelling terms, of how you take those people on the journey. And you don't have to worry about people being able to identify that intellectually. No one's going to kind of come up to you afterwards and go, you know what, Simon, great challenge. I like what you did there. But they will notice that sort of shift in gear, and the kind of acid test is where the people kind of buy into what you're talking about, whether people say, you know, that really, it's interesting, the word resonated, that really resonated with me. That's a physical action. There's, you know, literally, I felt the kind of vibrations of what you were saying there. And I think sometimes we over intellectualize our message, as you said right at the beginning. They're probably unlikely to remember what words you used, but if you gave them a strong feeling, then they'll take that with them.
And I think you have to think of it from your employees' perspective as these messages go on and the weeks have grown. You know, what would you want to hear if you were in their shoes?
Yeah.
And sometimes we forget that. We tell them what we want to talk about.
Yeah.
And we're all guilty of that in presentations and everything. But I think that's really something we have to keep in mind and really put ourselves in their shoes and deliver a message.
You know, and inevitably, you know, if you're leading a team, you're looking back at the problems that they're facing or that the organization's facing, and it through a slightly different set of glasses, if you like. So as you say, the more you can put yourself into their shoes and think, you know, where might they be right now? Why might they be behaving in the way that they're behaving? You know, if people are, you know, going into their shells a little bit, or you know, maybe becoming a little bit more difficult to get hold of, you know, what's, rather than just getting annoyed about that, what's behind it? What's the human aspect of that? And I think, you know, just from a mental health and well-being perspective, we've been in this scenario quite a long time now. And you know, looking at the three of us on camera, we appear to be relatively lucky. We seem to have a nice space to be able to do this broadcast from. Not everyone's in that position. You know, I've been speaking to people that are having to go and find a place on the stairs to try and avoid the kids, and there's a whole kind of level of stress that brings to conversations that it's easy to forget about if you've got a nice setup like I do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the conversations that I've had during the last couple of weeks, lots of them at the moment are focusing on people are feeling really flat, or people are still feeling the sort of fear and anxiety. How can I as a leader help them? And I mean, as we were chatting about, you're unlikely to do that if you're only imparting information or only giving instruction. So it really isn't connected with what they know or what they're going to do. It's definitely about how they feel.
Yeah.
And so this is one of the massive opportunities I think leaders have got to really help their people feel differently.
Yeah, and I think you can start to plot that journey almost. I mean, like the good old Kubler-Ross change curve. You can kind of see where different people are along that spectrum, and start to engage with them on an emotional level that meets them where they are. And I think that's really important, because you know, if you just go in and do the kind of jazz hands, it's all going to be great, we're going to be fine, you know, people aren't there, then they're very unlikely to just see that and go, okay, let me come with you. So you've got to be really aware of who your audience are, and then choose strategically what your emotional intention is to try and bring them to where you need them to be.
People are feeling guilty though, Dominic, just what you said there. I've noticed people feel guilty. They feel guilty when they're working. You know, they're saying, oh, the kids hate when the laptop comes out, because they know people are feeling guilty, and they're struggling to assign time to the tasks, and then, as we've spoken about before, then stepping out and taking some time for themselves to that time that you're normally in the car on the way home, and you listen to your audiobook, or you put on the music and you get into that. How would you suggest that they deal with that?
I mean, I'm having to be really strict with myself, because if I'm being very honest, my schedule has got very busy in the last couple of weeks, and I open the calendar in the morning, and it's pretty much block book apart from lunchtime and maybe half an hour in the afternoon. But I'm trying to be very strict with myself about creating that level of routine. So I am doing, for me, that kind of exercise, having a bit of a stretch, having a bit of a breathe in the morning really does set me up, and I know if I miss that, then it's going to have a knock-on effect for me for the rest of the day. And then even kind of micro pauses. So I'm in an office at the end of the garden right now. As I walk back from lunch, or as I go and make myself a cup of tea, I genuinely am finding myself just stopping and looking up at the sky, or looking at the blossom on the apple trees, and just trying to take a breath. So even if you're living in a flat, can you just stop at the kitchen sink and look out of the window, and just find a micro moment where you're not on, where you're grounded, where you're connected, and where you're creating a little bit of space. I think that's really important.
There's a couple of really, really key things I think in here. I mean, one is that most people, when they think about communication, do focus on what leaves me, and they forget about actually listening and tuning into other people. And you're absolutely right. If you want to meet people where they are, you have to be aware of them and how they're feeling. You've got to be able to meet them where they are. But also, you're right. If you're not taking care of yourself, then it's really difficult to get your energy right. Or, if you want to communicate in a calm way, it's very difficult to do that if you feel a bit frenzied.
Yeah.
You've got to actually get your own emotional state right in order to communicate the way that you want to, haven't you?
Yeah. And then from that place of groundedness, you have a lot more flexibility. You have choice. If you're just on the kind of hamster wheel, then your ability, your range, if you like, is greatly reduced. You find yourself kind of with a narrow set of choices, rather than the ability to see that bigger picture.
Yeah, but and that ability to sort of almost reverse engineer the sort of communication that you want, and the kind of, I do it with conferences. I remember chatting to a client when we were creating their conference, and I asked them, what do you want people to know, do, and feel at the end of it? And actually, once you've got that fixed in your mind, you do approach that challenge very, very differently. Yeah. You're likely to actually get the outcome that you want. I mean, we were doing that with, we had 100 people in that conference, and you can't absolutely engineer what everybody's going to know, say, and do and feel at the end of it, but it does give you a far different approach to the challenge in the first place.
Yeah, and I think one thing to be really aware of right now is, as we've started to create this new normal, and this new normal does look like a lot of virtual meetings, a lot of time spent in front of a screen. How do you keep people's attention? And I think it's useful to step outside of the kind of corporate world of work, and to think about the world of entertainment. How does Netflix get you tuning in and binge watching a whole series? It might be difficult to sit in your bum for an hour and a half and be present in a virtual meeting, but it's not difficult to spend an hour and a half in front of Game of Thrones or whatever it might be. So learn from those programs that you're watching. Like, what's the hook? What's the energy? How do they kind of capture your imagination? And how do they do that in kind of bite-sized chunks? So they're not expecting to kind of keep you up on a peak level of energy the whole time. You have this kind of sine wave that goes on, where you're kind of slowly building towards a crescendo and then coming back down, and then you get that kind of satisfied feeling. And then if it's Netflix, it goes here we go into the next episode, and that little circle timer go, and then you have to make the decision about whether you're going to be in or not for the next episode.
Yeah.
Works just the same. These meetings are just the same. Design your conference calls, design your team stand-ups in that way that engages people and gets them wanting more.
Yeah, I've seen a funny, actually there's been quite a few amusing things out on the internet just around how we operate in these meetings, Zoom meetings, and the would-be pilot, that Dominic is doing today with his headset.
Very nice.
But I mean, and then people who nod all the time, it's a bit like that. If you say absolutely, it means you've understood everything. But I think it is difficult as we've gone on in the weeks, really to have productive meetings, because, you definitely have to invest in it, and you have to get your head in the space. And I think if you're running from, you're absolutely correct in stopping. If you're running from homeschooling then to I have a meeting now, let's switch over, you're not getting into that zone. And I think that's what we're seeing. And it's okay to say to someone, you know what, I just need a couple of moments here. I know I've worked with Dominic, and he talks about that with the practical exercises. And that could be something, maybe run through those very quickly that you told me were really important, and I use them before I do this.
You mean just in terms of taking physical space, in terms of just in terms of physical relaxation. I was speaking to a client yesterday, and he was saying that I've got this trouble with the back-to-back meetings, and that I'm late, and so I'm just closing one meeting down and opening the next because I want to be on time. And I kind of said, well, you've got a couple of choices. You need to be stricter in terms of your chairing of the previous meetings to make sure that things are finishing on time. I'm really hot on this reduction of team meeting duration right now, but also with Teams or with Zoom or with Skype, you do get to choose when you click that button, and you really shouldn't be clicking that button until you're ready. So if that does mean that you're 2 minutes late, but it means that you're 2 minutes late and you're absolutely present and you know what you need to contribute and your mindset is with the thing that you're about to enter, that is much more valuable than you turning up notionally on time, but really not being in the meeting for the first 15 minutes where you try and get rid of the baggage of the thing that you've just done. So, just having physically moving and having a little bit of a stretch and, maybe kind of waking up the mask of the face and getting back connected with your breath. They sound maybe slightly mad, but I promise you, they'll put you in a much more centered place for beginning new conversations.
Yeah, I think too, I read somewhere recently to just, normally we do that. We run from meeting to meeting, we throw down our diary. It makes us look really kind of busy and things, and we are. But that actually, when you're starting these visual meetings, don't rush into the meeting immediately. Okay, today we need to talk about, just say, ask a question, how's the day been so far? So exactly the same as the exercise, just give it a second to, get into a flow, and that's, it's kind of useful.
Yeah. And as you were saying, the difference in impact that has when you just take a moment and you make sure you're right and that you deliver your very best, a very best version of yourself, it makes such an impact on the team. The difference is vast. And I think this is where that opportunity for business leaders really lies, to make sure that you go beyond, as I remember you saying when we did the masterclass, you've got to go beyond just the information and the instruction. Yeah. You have to understand those other dimensions, because that's where really, really powerful leadership and really powerful communication lies. Absolutely,
it's the difference between something that is transactional and something that's transformational, and that lies in that moment of stillness, that moment of preparation, and really kind of focusing on that outcome. I mean, from with your sports background, you'd never expect a golfer to just walk up to the tee, backswing and away we go. You know, they'll spend time there and they don't take the shot until they're ready to take the shot, or the good ones don't.
Yeah, and I often talk to them about, you know, if you're not ready, step away and come back.
Yeah.
Because quite honestly, like as you just explained it, the difference in a couple of seconds, it's no difference at all. The difference between getting the ball in the hole or not is huge.
Huge, yeah.
So yeah, absolutely brilliant. As always, absolutely fantastic. Now, before we go, I noticed on, I think it might have been your Facebook page, a picture of you holding some hair clippers.
Yes.
With a Just Giving link, a charity link underneath it.
Yeah, a crowdfunder link. Yeah, on this evening. So this is the last formal public appearance I'll be making with a head of hair. This evening, I'm shaving my head for charity, for a little children's charity in London called Westminster Boating Base, that is under real pressure at the moment through loss of venue hire revenue. They look like they're going to have to close. So 6 p.m. live on Facebook, I'm going to be shaving my head. If you do want to buy me a virtual beer or a coffee and make a couple of quid donation to the pot, then you can find that at crowdfunder.co.uk/boating base buzzcut. But I'll get you guys to put a link in the show notes for people.
Well done, Dominic. Well
yeah,
done.
I'm petrified. My wife is going to do it. She's never used a pair of clippers before. It could be a disaster, but it might make for an entertaining Facebook Live. So we'll see.
Sure.
Absolutely. And it's in a fantastic cause, like you say. Yeah. So all the best with that. I'm certainly going to hit your crowdfunder page.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much again for joining us. It's been brilliant. Helen, thank you very much. Guys, thank you for joining us too. And we will see you on another episode of Pep Talks. Take care.
Take care.